Hey, Longevity Junkie, it's time to get your fix. I'm Nikki Lee.
I'm Buck Joffrey.
Today we talk with Eric Tivers, licensed clinical social worker, ADHD coach, and podcast host about his innovative work helping adults with ADHD thrive through coaching, community, and evidence-based strategies. We also have a weird wellness history lesson on blistering therapy. But first, let's catch up. Hi, Buck.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm better today, actually.
Yeah?
Yesterday, I wasn't very up for life, but today I feel a lot more. Yeah, I feel like I finally got some sleep, which was helpful.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm still kind of sleepy.
Well, are you burnt out? Don't be burnt. You gotta.
I don't think it's burnout. Kids are home, for summer, and like we've been partying, watch movies.
Oh, hardcore.
We watch movies and stuff like that, and
Any good movies you've liked that you've watched?
I actually show them movies from my childhood that I really liked, and they like that.
What are they?
Well, last night we watched In the Line of Fire with Clint Eastwood, and where John Malkovich is this guy who's trying to kill the president. He's an assassin, and it's really...
These are your child movies?
Yeah, these are my kids' movies.
I'm like, where did I don't know.
No.
Voice the reader.
We don't do that kind of stuff around here. We're all about like the real movies. Even my 10-year-old was like into it, and she doesn't like it when people get shot, but whatever. I didn't worry about people getting shot when I was 10 on TV either. And then like Raising Arizona, though, that was a good one. Remember Raising Arizona?
I actually don't at all.
What's his name? Nick Cage, and like that's a really good one. You got to watch. It's comedy.
Okay. Oh, it's a comedy?
Yeah, it's about how him and I forget, she was an actress in the 80s. That was in a lot of movies. They're like these hillbillies, and they steal a baby from a rich guy. It's just really funny. So we've been watching those kinds of old movies from like when I was either a kid or a teenager or something like that. So
okay. Well, now that I know what kind of movies you grew up on, I feel like I have a little bit better of a focus on who you are as a person.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, none of that Lion King stuff and all that.
Yeah, apparently not.
We're hardcore around here.
That's awesome.
So what have you been up to?
I mean, just kind of traveling around and just trying to take in all of the opportunities of summer, I guess.
Good.
Yeah.
Any big ones coming up, or you done?
Well, I'm gonna meet my mom in Spain, which will be really amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Barcelona?
No, Bilbao. Actually,
I don't know what that is.
It's Bilbao, Spain. It's a city in Spain. It's beautiful. There's like canals. There's this there's the Guggenheim Museum that looks incredible. Like think what is that in Australia? Like the big symphony or whatever. Opera house or whatever. When you think of Australia, you don't think of a big...
I think of great white sharks. I think of great white sharks when I think of Australia.
The Guggenheim Museum is in Bilbao, and it's beautiful architecture and everything. So I'm excited for all that and just visiting a new part of a country that I know in different cities. So it'll be fun. Cool. I'm excited. Yeah. It's always good for my mom and I to travel together. We try and pick a place every year, but we didn't get one last year. So that's why I'm really excited this year. We're going to go to Spain.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
What do we got on deck?
Okay. Well, we have an interesting story about blistering therapy, which, well, here we go. So from the 17th through the 19th centuries, physicians across Europe and America routinely used blistering as a legitimate medical treatment. Interesting. The technique involving applying irritating substances like mustard paste, ammonia, or hot irons to the skin to intentionally raise blisters. These blisters were thought to draw out disease or distract the body from deeper internal problems. Blistering was prescribed for an alarming range of conditions like fever, pneumonia, migraines, gout, epilepsy, and even mental illness. Some doctors believe that moving inflammation from inside the body to the skin's surface could restore internal balance. Sometimes the blisters were repeatedly reopened or drained to prolong the inflammatory process. It was brutal, painful, and often led to secondary infections, scarring, and sepsis. But the thinking was clear. If you suffered, the treatment was working. There are some weird things throughout history of our health, our health industry of how to cure people.
Well, I don't think it was much of an industry. I mean, it was more voodoo, right? Like, I mean, it was really before sort of
I
when we
guess,
realized how
we
the
just got
body
to
works.
experiment.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's that whole idea of humors and all that kind of stuff, even before they really discovered microorganisms and bacteria and viruses and all that stuff. So, it's interesting.
It's interesting that suffering equals healing. Like,
Well,
like I don't know if that's necessarily true.
so okay, so let's
Okay.
state that let's run with that one.
Okay.
Okay. If you think about like what we're learning about in longevity medicine right now, there's these are stressors seem to actually benefit you. So I'm not saying our head blistering does, right? But I mean, as long as you're going in that direction, um, and, this concept of hormesis, like whatever. In short, the simple idea is whatever doesn't really significantly hurt you or kill you is going to make you stronger. So that's the idea. When you think about, well, why are we doing cryotherapy? Why are we doing sauna? Extreme heat, extreme cold. Why is exercise good for us? We're stressing our bodies. So there is just this overall concept of, trying to challenge our bodies in order to induce health. So there we have a little bit of that still. Yeah. I mean, we still use leeches.
Leeches?
Yeah, leeches.
Okay.
Yeah, they used to use leeches, live leeches, and sometimes in plastic surgery, if there's like a bunch of blood that's backed up in veins and stuff, you put live leeches on there.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a real thing. Yeah, so all sorts of interesting stuff in the history of medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Well, just like they thought like shock therapy, like hurting people in shock therapy helped mental health, which God.
Yeah.
I feel
Well, I think those things are just like, I think a lot of the history of medicine is about not really scientific, right? A lot of it in the past has been, hey, let's see if this works. Let's just, let's shock somebody's brain and see if you can reset all those electrical things. And sometimes it seemed to do something and sometimes it didn't. And that was the way medicine evolved.
Or what about even when they would drill in the head?
Yeah, well, I mean,
I mean, there's some, there's always talk about like kind of doctors having like kind of a God complex, which some really do, but it's like,
yeah.
so I feel like inflicting pain or inflicting something that's like so extreme like that, I feel like it kind of, I don't know, solidifies that God complex because you're able to have such control or like dominance over somebody.
I've drilled through people's heads.
Okay, I hope just because I don't know. Are you serious?
When I was a neurosurgeon. I was a neurosurgeon.
Tell me a story from doing something like that.
Oh,
Drilling in someone's head. Why would you do that?
well, because you're operating on the brain, so you got to get in there somehow.
True. So,
Right.
what was one of your operations?
Well, the way you get into the brain, the way you basically get into the head is typically you drill these holes and just and then you kind of connect the lines. So you have three holes. You connect the lines, and then you kind of pull out a little like a jack-o'-lantern kind of, and then you've got brain exposure there. That's kind of how you did it. And then the holes are useful because, that you use regular drills so you can put screws and stuff back in them. Right.
So you use power tools in the surgery?
Power tools.
Home Depot and the ER. Who knew?
Well, actually, so I grew up very not handy. My dad is not handy at all. And the first time I ever used a drill was on somebody's head. And so that's how I learned to use a drill. Anyway.
How empowering.
Right. Well, what we got on? What do we got going here for the next section?
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk to licensed clinical social worker, ADHD coach, and podcast host, Eric Tivers. Welcome back to Longevity Junky. It's time for our guest interview. It's The Breakdown with Eric Tivers. Eric Tivers is a licensed clinical social worker, ADHD coach, and leading voice in the neurodiversity community. He is the founder of ADHD Rewired, a top-rated podcast and coaching program that helps adults with ADHD build structure, improve focus, and live more intentionally. With a background in psychotherapy and a deep understanding of executive function, Eric combines evidence-based strategies with compassionate coaching to empower clients around the world. His work bridges clinical expertise with real-world tools that support growth, productivity, and connection. Welcome to the show, Eric. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to get some clarity on some ADHD issues that I feel like we all have.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to do that for you guys today.
Well, what led you to be such a prominent voice in the ADHD community? Did you have an experience with ADHD that influenced your life or even the longevity practices maybe?
So I don't remember where I first heard this, but the idea of making your mess your message was very fitting for myself because I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 19, which and that diagnosis came only after I almost failed out of college. It's my freshman year, first semester, I had like a 2.2 GPA, not so hot. And then with the threat of being pulled out of school if I don't get my grades up, I actually decided to go find the library and crack open those books and study. And I did worse. I did it with a 1.8 that semester. I was
Really?
like, something is not right.
Found the library though.
I found the library, and I was having I had a date with this girl that I was and I don't remember who it is if you're ADHD of me. And she was telling me that she was recently diagnosed, and one of the things that she said that kind of made the light bulb go off in my head was that she would struggle with reading, that she would be like whatever she was reading, she would start thinking about stuff that was kind of triggered by what she was reading. And now she's having all these different thoughts while reading the words, getting to the end of whatever she was reading, and she had no idea what she just read. And I was like, oh, that's my experience. And so I was able to convince my folks to give me one more shot at college before pulling me out and making me do community college. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I did not want to go back home. And so I got an evaluation at my university, and I was kind of off the charts for the inattentive ADHD, and started medication, and it was life-changing, and kind of the rest is history, but we'll maybe fill in some gaps.
Are you still on that medication?
I am still on that medication almost 25 years later. I still take stimulant medication, and I don't have two heads, and I don't have addiction from it. There's a lot of misinformation about ADHD medication.
So medication just helps you focus.
The stimulant medication does, because stimulants are the primary sort of pharmaceutical treatment for ADHD. What it really does is it basically almost think about like there's this air traffic controller in your brain when you take the medication, and the dopamine typically would kind of just go randomly throughout your brain and would make it hard for you to do anything that you weren't interested in, right? Where you take the medication and it keeps sending that dopamine to the prefrontal cortex, where all those executive functions of the things like planning, organizing, task initiation, working memory, goal setting, emotional self-regulation, all of those executive function things. We think about executive functions as sort of our brain's CEO, like the kind of control and command center of our brain. And so what the ADHD medication does is it kind of puts that role in your brain when previously it might not have been there or not have worked very well.
I feel like it's kind of important to like give a broad definition of ADHD, because I think the terms gets thrown around left and right. So let's try to get on the same page of like, what are we talking about? What exactly is ADHD? Because not everybody who says they're ADHD is ADHD. So let's. Why don't you give us a definition? Because obviously you have a whole show on this.
Sure. So ADHD makes up, there's basically three primary components to it. There is the hyperactivity and impulsivity. So that's where we get the predominantly hyperactive presentation of ADHD. Then you have the inattentive presentation, or inattention and distractibility. And then you also have a combined presentation of ADHD, where you have certain symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity, certain symptoms of inattention and distractibility. And now, look, I think one of the reasons that there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of kind of discrediting ADHD is because every human on this earth can relate to some of the symptoms of ADHD.
Yeah.
Right. The issue is this is not just about being hyperactive or being impulsive. It's not just about being forgetful sometimes or losing your keys sometimes. This kind of follows you everywhere. So with the hyperactivity and impulsivity, there's 9 specific features that are listed in the diagnostic and statistical manual. Same thing, there's 9 symptoms of inattentiveness in there. And for kids, you got to have 6 out of 9. And then in the last update of the DSM, they actually changed it to 5 out of 9 of those symptoms, because ADHD is a developmental disorder. So that actually makes sense to actually lower the number of criteria that you would need as you become an adult. So we're kind of always catching up, but we're also always a bit behind from our peers.
What are those 9 things? Because you're saying
things like frequently restless, blurts things out, has a hard time sustaining attention for longer periods of time, easily disorganized. Now my brain just went to 5.
Is there any about feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, and that absolutely can be a part of it. I think when we look at one of the top demographics that are getting diagnosed now and over the last 5 to 10 years, it's been women. And one of the stories that is so common is that women have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And what this is feeling anxious and depressed because they have ADHD and they don't realize it, right? And so they're struggling so much to sort of execute on the things that they are wanting to do.
Yeah.
Right. Things, and I think even understanding just the idea that a neurotypical brain, so someone who does not have ADHD, who's for all measures is quote unquote normal, or the normies, as sometimes we call them in the neurodivergent community. When we think about their brains, they prioritize what they want to get done based on what's most important. Okay. Our brain does not work that way. Our brain is an interest-based nervous system. So if we are really interested in something, not only can we focus really well, we can actually get into this thing called hyperfocus, which is sort of like you become almost like tunnel visioned, in which there are some positives to it. But on the flip side of that, when you are sort of hyper-focused on stuff for hours and hours and hours and hours without taking breaks, not only do you actually make it more difficult for your brain to sort of restore and recharge its executive functions, whether it's later in that day or even the next day, you also can lead to burnout. And there's even things like, we know that especially with women, that increase rates of bladder infections because you don't get up to pee.
Oh, shoot.
I just mentioned this offline, but I sort of have a strange brain in the way, like I have always in school when I was a kid, I had a lot of problems paying attention, and but then when things got interesting to me, I could go away for hours and hours and hours, and then the same patterns in terms of studying in medical school for me, where I could literally study for 8 hours without moving, and then not even notice the time went by because I was so engrossed. So actually, it's interesting. I didn't realize. I was telling a friend about it, who's actually a psychiatrist. This is classic hyperfocus ADHD. So in my situation, it's it's my personality, right? I mean, I've always been kind of a messy dude, completely disorganized and just forget little things in life, but then hyper focus to degrees that's almost superhuman on things that interest me. Yeah. So That's fun. It's interesting. I bring that up just because I think there's probably others who have this. Um, and that's a kind of ADHD as well. And for me, it's, it doesn't debilitate me. It doesn't, I'm not on any medication. And in fact, it probably, if anything, probably was beneficial for the, the way I kind of pursued my studies. So,
Yeah. How so? How do you see it as beneficial?
well, I used to, again, just in terms of studying, once I got interested in something like in college, I got interested, of all things, everybody else hates it, but organic chemistry. And this is like, yeah. Oh, just, I started kind of just getting so into it that my brain would just like go deeper. And like, solving things that no one else seemed could solve. And it was just because my brain would kind of just hyper focus and perseverate on the same problem until it was solved. So, I mean, for me, I feel like, net has been a positive in my life. Now, I think it would be, I don't know, like in terms of like, now I've got somebody who takes care of my house as a house cleaner, and I don't have to, I neglect everything, and I can neglect everything because I've been able to, hire people to take care of stuff like that. So
it's funny. There are a number of years ago, I go to and I speak at my national ADHD conference every year, and there was one of the keynote speakers, sort of tongue in cheek, at his talk, says, "So good news, everyone! There is a cure for ADHD. The only problem is it's not accessible to that many people. The cure is money, because if you have enough of it, you can outsource everything that makes ADHD hard."
Mm.
I can attest to that. Yeah. Because it's basically how I live my life. And actually, it makes it easier because then I hyper focus on the things that I need to hyper focus on. I outsource everything else. So
that's great. That's great.
I want to bring it back a little bit. You were saying that like women especially, and I feel like this goes men and women, but you did mention specifically that women, it's more common now that they can't, or they feel they can't execute on the things that they want to do. And I want to say that I am definitely, I feel like one of those women. Then I get like really anxious, and then I get kind of like depressed, honestly. And I feel like unmotivated, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm so good at focusing, but why can't I get there? So with that of, not being able to execute on the things that you want to do, how would you coach somebody to start doing these things that they want to do? Like what is something that our listeners and me, honestly, and anyone really interested in this can take away and start to be like, okay, let's get this started.
So, Nick, would it be okay, instead of talking about this in the abstract, if you actually shared a specific challenge that you're actually you're having difficulty taking action on?
Okay, well,
not in the spot or anything, but
no, that's okay. I have to try and think about this. Well, I just feel like I feel like I have a lot I want to do. Like I love to accomplish things, but I think I feel overwhelmed I have so many things I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just putting me in this paralysis of not starting kind of anything. And honestly, I just kind of escape, So because I feel like I don't even know where to begin on how do I even start to prioritize? How do I schedule out my day, maybe? Something like that that's beneficial or will get the ball moving.
So if you were a client of mine, I would first kind of look at, all right, what are some of your values? If you have more long-term goals, do you have like a theme for the year? So do you have any of those, do you have a theme for your year or goals for the year?
Well, my goals in the start of the year totally have changed. But I really
do, and that's okay.
Yeah. I feel like I've been taking a break from like social media, right? And it's because like it's definitely for my mental health, and I really want to be more present. So, but I'm also like, damn, I see either numbers dropping, or I see, I do see the benefit of being consistent, but I don't know why I just can't kind of focus on that. I used to do it every single solitary day. First thing I did when I woke up, or or right before I went to bed, I had it prepped. So I think maybe getting back in the flow of I don't know, executing professionally, I guess.
Okay. So if your primary goal is sort of consistent execution of like stuff online, is that okay? What do you think is getting in your way?
I just have so many amazing options in life, like to go travel or to go all these great social things that I respect and really believe that I need to work on relationships and connections and keeping that. So I feel like that's why my focus kind of went there.
Are you trying to plan and execute at the same time?
Oh, probably, yeah. I'm not, I don't
That's
say
like
people
going to the
plan
grocery
perfectly,
store
yeah.
hungry. You don't go to the grocery store hungry, right? But
So, Eric, can I just, and I don't want to interrupt your therapy session here, Nikki, but my
You
question, real quick is just like what Nikki's describing. I mean, like ADHD is a diagnosis. It's not something you get like as you get older and you get, right? I mean, I'm trying to differentiate, not in any way to say that Nikki's issues aren't real issues, but we're talking about a specific diagnosis here.
right.
How are you differentiating that, or is anybody who's saying they've got issues?
Absolutely. I'll respond to that, and then I'll ask you guys to bring me back to Nikki because working memory is also an ADHD thing. So I'll follow you down any pathway, right? So we need to see impairment for a minimum of 6 months. It needs to be an impairment in multiple domains of life. Although there's some researchers that are kind of questioning that, because if you have a certain environment that's really supportive and conducive to your ADHD, you're not going to see as much impairment. But typically speaking, you see impairment in multiple domains of life, and it has to be present, and the symptoms need to be present at some point in childhood. They used to say by 7 years old, then it was 12 years old, then it was 14 years old. I think the thinking is probably around like the time where you hit puberty, you should be seeing symptoms then. The issue is that that's not also always the case too, because we know that intelligence and ADHD, like those are not correlated things. You can be highly intelligent and have ADHD, and sometimes feels intelligent can kind of make up for some of the executive functioning challenges. And so, school's fine until you hit to a certain point, right? And there's hormonal changes too, and so those kinds of things can affect us as we get older. So, and the things that are helpful for ADHD, and this is something that I think that would be beneficial for every company that is serving the public to understand, if they want to serve their customer base better, understand what works for people with ADHD, because it's a universal design. Because if it's helpful for people with ADHD, it's going to be helpful for everybody.
Yeah, and so I guess my thought there is like you can have sort of some of these issues that people with ADHD do. It's like it doesn't seem like it necessarily has to be one or the other. You're either ADHD or not. It sounds like some of the things that you're doing help people with symptoms that people with ADHD frequently have. Like, for example, in this case, Nikki's having some issues. I mean, she may not be ADHD, but she's having some attention related issues that you can address with similar types of therapy or whatever.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I look at therapy versus coaching. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, but I do primarily therapy. Because I think in therapy, what often we're working on is stuff that is really probably complex PTSD from growing up in a ableist society in a world that didn't really adjust or understand who we are. And so a lot of the messages we got were very sort of shame-based messages, of, you're lazy, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, right? And so all those messages can really have a significant impact on our core belief system of who we are. But what, in coaching, we are really looking at action orientation, right? And really breaking things down to the smallest sort of bite-sized level in order to initiate that, whatever the thing you want to do. And then the other part is, the work that I do these intensive coaching groups where accountability is a huge part of it, because we look at ADHD as sort of this disorder of good intentions, right? We have really good intentions. It just doesn't, our actions don't always connect with that intention. So with accountability, it's about sharing your intention with someone else with a plan to follow up on reporting whether or not you did the thing. And I really look at that accountability piece as that bridge that connects good intentions to action.
In terms of the effects on health, you've probably looked into this. You've got this constant cognitive load, and that's going to create a lot of stress. People with ADHD have higher rates of issues like obesity, sleep disorders, substance abuse. Tell us about, kind of what the mechanisms at play here and how you deal with that.
There was a study that came out a few years ago by one of the pioneering researchers in the field of ADHD, Russell Barkley, and it was the ADHD lifespan study. And what it showed is that ADHD has a greater impact on life expectancy than smoking, obesity, diabetes, all these heart disease combined, because there are so many factors that play into the way people with ADHD live their lives. And one of the outlying factors we found, though, is that people who have a high level of conscientiousness, if you look at the big five personality types, people who have higher levels of conscientiousness tend to do much better in these sort of life outcomes. The problem is that as a group, people with ADHD often do have lower conscientiousness as a whole. So what leads to these different life outcomes? Not making regular medical appointments, or engaging in high risk behaviors. People with ADHD, we love adrenaline things. Like I often refer to myself as an adrenaline junkie. I mean, I ride a motorcycle. There's lots of things that I do for the adrenaline because it actually regulates me. So I think about taking calculated risks, or taking risks carefully. We know there's higher rates of early pregnancies and not finishing school, and all these things that we know factor into poor health outcomes. And so it's one of the things that Russell Barkley would talk about, how frustrating it is in the medical community, how ADHD is kind of looked at as this, whatever is ADHD. But it is actually a very serious disorder when it's not taken seriously. Even understanding addiction in ADHD is so important, because I know there's a lot of people who won't even consider medication because they have a past history of addiction, or doctors who won't consider allowing someone who has ADHD to be on a stimulant medication because they have a past history of addiction, when in fact, the medication is the exact thing that can be most helpful for lowering the likelihood of impulsive types of use. So it really is an important thing to understand, because I think we're looking at, if I recall, it's a 7-year lower life expectancy, and that's not a small amount.
Yeah, twice as mortality rate, standardized mortality rate is twice as high people with ADHD compared to those without. And a lot of that, at least, I think this study, it was Lancet study in 2015. Most of it is, those numbers are associated with the fact that there is higher risk of accident, substance abuse, and suicide.
Yeah.
So people with ADHD live longer, we're saying?
Shorter. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then it sounds like I feel like it's because stress.
Yeah.
Because they're stressed, they want to get something done, but they can't. They feel overwhelmed. Like, I don't know. We've talked about stress a lot and how that affects the body and the normal functions. How would you say
certainly
that?
part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely part of it. It's all these different sort of life outcome factors are the other thing. It's hard to sustain sort of the healthy behaviors for a lot of people with ADHD. Like, we can do stuff for a while, but then it's like we suddenly realize, we haven't worked out in 2 months. When did that happen? Right? Like, or we were eating so healthy, like we lost all this weight, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, when did I gain all the weight back? Like, this is a really common thing that happens with ADHD.
Okay, well then, staying in that vein, like, having things that support longevity, like you're saying, exercise and eating healthy and getting in these really healthy habits. Like, what are some strategies or tools that you would recommend to these people to help them with that?
If we look at that, what's the outlier of the lower life expectancy, as I was saying about conscientiousness, learning about ADHD, staying involved with learning about ADHD, getting connected to an ADHD community. Because it is, it's so easy for us to think as someone with ADHD to think that like, oh, it's just me. I'm the problem. When we realize that there are all these people with ADHD who are doing brilliant, creative, amazing things and are also struggling. And both of those things can be true at the same time. But I think if we're in isolation, we think we're just struggling, we're the screw ups, we're not ever going to get, and we almost discount the successes that we have. Right. So I think that being connected to community, having, working with people who understand the way your brain works is so important because I think that there is so much shame that gets transmitted, even in the healthcare industry, that when doctors and even therapists don't understand ADHD. I mean, I know this still happens today in schools of psychology and medicine where professors who are teaching the future sort of mental health professionals tell them that ADHD isn't real. And it is so frustrating.
That is super frustrating. What about other common myths then that you encounter in ADHD in adults?
It's a moral failing. It's if you just tried harder, or you're lazy. That was my diagnosis when I was a kid. Lazy, right? What it was more accurately was ADHD. Other myths. I think on the flip side too, there's a lot of myths about like ADHD being a superpower. A lot of people like this whole superpower thing, and
heck yeah, we want to be superheroes.
Well, to me it's like a warm security blanket, right? It's for comfort, but it's like, and going back to reference Russell Barkley a little while ago, one of the things that he has said is like that he thinks it's really important that we stop referring to it as a superpower because why are insurance companies going to pay for treatment for a superpower?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
be careful how it's out there so that you
can. That was a good point. And
you can have some help.
And I think like with any superpower though, it's you also have your kryptonite. And it's like, so if you want to understand, right, what your strengths are, how to leverage them, you have to understand what your challenges are so you can work around them. Right. Whether that's, getting someone to clean your home so you can actually focus on other stuff or take care of your accounting so you can focus on other stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like, for me, like spreadsheets, my brain, like they just it does not compute. Even though I need to be doing it. So that's something that is harder for me.
Tell me about the role of just basic lifestyle issues in ADHD as it relates to helping with the issue. For example, a certain diet, we've encountered situations where we're seeing people who, for example, suggest that ketogenic diets are helping with depression and schizophrenia, even exercise. Obviously, there's a lot of net benefits to exercise, and then obviously sleep, which is often impaired in these individuals as well. So can you tell us a little bit about some of, the issues around those three things?
All right. So here's the tricky thing about diet. I think, and part of this is I think that the sort of the diet, not dieting, but the diet industry, I think do a disservice to the population by saying everything is a miracle and this is the thing that's going to cure everything. Right. Like, and that's what, so like, because anytime I hear that, red flags go up and I'm like, if you're saying that it takes care of everything, I don't believe you because nothing takes care of everything. Right. And food's also hard to study, right? Because you have so many other variables in there. Now, I like to say that
it's not one food source too.
Right.
Like there's so many variables to that.
Right. And there is a lot of misinformation about food and its connection to ADHD.
Like what?
Dyes cause ADHD or sugar causes ADHD, right? Mm-hmm. Like that being said, I have heard from so many people who cut out sugar from their diet and they said you cannot believe how much better they feel. Or they change something in their diet and feel so much better. And I say, okay, if you are managing everything else fairly well and you're still looking for that symptom improvement, experiment. And that's really what coaching is all about. It's about experimenting. It's like, I know I have a kind of a sensitive diet because I have a sensitivity to anything that has corn in it. And if you live in America, like everything has corn. And it's really frustrating because it also goes by about 100 different names. I used to think that I had irritable bowel syndrome. It was like, no, I actually had a corn sensitivity and I eliminated the corn and I got basically an hour back to my day every morning. right? And it was kind of life changing. It's a pain in the butt to have to keep it up because like going out to a restaurant with me is not always fun because I'm
It's
like,
also a pain in the butt to have that pain in the butt.
it's true, it's true. As soon as I said that, I saw your face go in there.
I'm like a dad joke. Like I
You're
go
right,
different
right,
dad
right.
jokes. I'm like, yes.
So, I say experiment with stuff. We do know we do think that high protein, low carbs can be very helpful for the brain. So I usually try to save my carbs for nighttime. I do high protein in the morning and afternoon.
Yeah. And how about exercise?
So important, and it's interesting because from what I've seen, there's not a huge amount of really good robust data. But pharmaceutical companies don't pay for research on exercise typically. Um, but there is research on performance with exercise, and it's from everyone that I have worked with, and I've worked with well over 1,000 people with ADHD. Exercise is one of the most important non medication treatments for ADHD. It is for me. It is one of the most important things that I do for my brain each morning. Because on the days that I skip a workout, I feel a huge difference in that. So, and cardiovascular specifically, and there's some research that pointed to um, greater rates of neurogenesis when during cardio workouts. If you can have a few minutes where you're like kind of pushing to the max, like feeling that burn,
Mhm.
something about that creates sort of a whole sort of explosion of neurotransmitters, which is really helpful for our brain.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. The big problems with sleep, obviously, and ADHD individuals. You
That
experience
is
that.
Sleep is my gravel mountain, where it's like I'm constantly climbing up and improving, and then constantly slipping back down.
Yeah.
Is I have there's actually a term for it called sleep bedtime procrastination, and
Yeah.
and here's how it sounds. Oh, just one more thing. Oh,
Oh my God, that's so me. I literally have to just be like, no, go to effing bed. And then I'm like, oh shit, but I need my night routine, or oh shit, I need to do this. Oh God, it's just, yeah.
and it's so hard. It's hard
I
to,
know.
and part of it's because sleep's kind of boring, right? And it's like because you got to say, okay, the day is done, but it is profound. Like good nights of sleep make the brain like it could see farther into the future when you're sleeping well.
Oh, well, I mean, just we've had episodes where we've proven that sleep is very, very important, and getting that 8 hours is very, very important. But how would you get through that? How would you get through that ADHD of like going to bed and actually get to bed? Do you have like what do you coach your people on?
No, I have all kinds of different strategies on it. So one of my strategies I'd like to share, can't really use anymore because the context of my life has changed. So this worked when I was married. So I have a kid, and I would often work very late into the evening. And so one of the things that I would do to prevent myself from working very late into the evening is I would actually have an alarm clock set in the hall bathroom that I had to get there before it went off. Because if I didn't get there before it went off, it would then wake my son, and it would have woken my now ex-wife. And so that's sort of like the activation for the
Preventing disturbance and like,
I call it the oh crap energy. Whereas it crap, gotta do that now, right? And so it's like I can because transitions are really hard for people with ADHD, right? Stopping and moving on to the next thing. But like when you gotta hurry up to go like put out the bomb, right? It's suddenly now you've gamified it, and that you can transition so fast um, because you don't want to end up having
you set an alarm for that alarm.
absolutely. Now I'm thinking about it. Set
Yeah.
reminders for your ADHD when you need reminders about setting reminders.
It's hilarious. Okay, so anything else to go to sleep?
Things like trying to reduce screen time, bright lights.
Not
Um,
eating a few hours before bed.
yep. Sometimes melatonin can be helpful. Making the environment sleep conducive. They say they should basically your
Colder, darker.
bedroom should be used for two things: sleep and sex. Right? Nothing else. Like don't have a TV in there. I wish, and if someone can come up with this product, I will throw my money at you. As soon as I get into the posts of my bed, do not let my phone work. Please. Like, if
Yeah.
because it's fine if it's right next to me, because I like having it next to me. I'll listen to a podcast to fall asleep. I use a sleep cycle app that helps me wake up during my lightest phase of sleep instead of just being abruptly woken up like at whatever the given time is. But yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Well, airplane mode or putting it on the other side of the room, things like that can really be helpful. Well,
Yeah.
you were saying one of the things that was really is really hard for people with ADHD is transitions.
Yeah.
I would love to understand, more tools on transitions for people, because I do see that. I see it's like if I'm into something and it's not the productive thing I really want to be doing, it is hard to switch that and go right into something that I know is better for me.
Yeah, so it's interesting when we look at attention and the attention networks of the brain, right? So ADHD doesn't just affect attention as in the concentration and focus. One of the attention networks in our brain is actually explicitly responsible for task switching.
Hmm.
Right? The ADHD brain is typically really awful at task switching when intended. And in the same token, it's also like having the radio on like the scan mode, or like every few seconds it goes to the next channel, right? So
Mm.
like it switches when we don't want it, or it's actually annoying and frustrating and distracting. But when we're really into something, it is hard to stop what we are doing. And so there can be a lot of different strategies that we use for that. Like I have a client that I've been working with who one of the things that he's doing now is he's actually scheduling texts to me. It's actually a similar strategy to the alarm clock thing.
Uh-huh.
If he schedules a text message to me that tells me he didn't take a break yet. And the idea
Oh.
is like he wants to be able to take the break so then he can cancel the scheduled text message.
Right.
Right. Because, and one of the things I think is, and this is something I've been I'm very passionate about, is understanding burnout. Over the last year and a half, I had actually hit a really, really significant period of burnout. That was semi-disabling. Like it got really, really bad. Because I worked for hours and hours and hours. Like I would, you know, I had times where I was working 70, 80 plus hours a week. And I did that for years. And one of the things that I've learned is like historically, I've been really bad at taking breaks. Like once I'm in work mode, I stay in work mode for 8 hours. Like my butt cheeks fall asleep because I'm in work mode in my check. I don't get up. Right. And, I get this, what I call fuzzy brain feeling. Right. And fuzzy brain feeling is when you've just been on for too long, your brain is just like feels mushy and that just doesn't feel good. Right.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've been exploring, and I think that I am onto something here, is that if I can prevent fuzzy brain feeling by taking regular, consistent breaks throughout the day, and even if that's just a 5-minute break in between meetings, that is helping me avoid that fuzzy brain feeling that I was kind of just used to every day towards the end of the day. And so I've been doing everything that I can to avoid that particular feeling by taking breaks. And it's hard. And I have a
But then how do you go back and out of the break? It's like sometimes it's hard for people to take the breaks, but then once you take the break, sometimes it's hard to get back into the actual.
And that's where accountability is such a powerful tool with this. So whether that's, I run this intensive coaching group where we do these, accountability is a big part of it. I also have a virtual co-working community, and people will put like in the chat that they're taking a break and will be back at a certain time. So they leave their cameras on, and so it's like when you share your future intention can be in 5 minutes, right? But you share that, it creates this sort of anchor and a place to sort of come back to with whatever your intention is.
I mean, intention is a lot for a lot of things, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on my podcast. I start the intro with ADHD, you have really good intentions, but a slightly wandering attention.
Mm.
So, yeah, so tell us about the podcast and, where else we can learn about, all your mission and all your advice to people.
Cool. So the podcast is called ADHD Rewired. I started it in 2014. And as a very ADHD sort of journey, I didn't even realize I was actually starting a second business until I was like 6 months in.
Yeah.
And actually impulsively, while recording a solo episode, I just had this idea about doing an online group. And I'm just like,
Oh, good.
kind of came to me, and I put it in the thing in the episode. And then I was like, I'll have more info about that next week. And then I'm like, oh, what can of worms did I just open up? because I was trying to figure out like nobody was doing anything like what I've been doing. So I now have now we're recording this on June 24th. Right now, I think I have 552 episodes. I I went 10 years of my podcast without missing a week, which if you're a
Wow.
podcaster, I don't recommend. Take breaks. It's and part of it was my sort of like, I don't know if either of you are like this. If someone says, "Oh, you can't really do that," I'm like, "Oh yeah,
Watch me.
exactly." And my 10 years of
Oh yeah.
consistency was watch me, right?
Yeah.
Someone said I couldn't do it. But I was like, you know what? Like I needed to sort of step back. So, um, 6 months after I started the podcast, I had my first coaching group, and it was very successful. And then I launched my next one, and then it continued to grow. So I basically had 9 consecutive years of year after year growth when I started ADHD Rewired. And then kind of things changed with COVID. A lot of people sort of entered the ADHD space. Like when I first started, there was me and like 5 other ADHD podcasts. You go search any podcast app now. There's like 100 last time I checked, and that was like 6 months ago.
And it's getting crowded. It's getting crowded out there.
Well, I really like to do it because when I started the podcast, I actually started as a solo show, just sharing, tips and strategies. And then I sort of stumbled into my first interview. It was sort of this like, it was kind of an accidental interview. I got this really cool email from someone who basically said like they relearned they had ADHD from the podcast. They were actually really struggling with some stuff in their life. And so they sent me this really long email, and I did this sort of a Radio Lab style of like a lot of like audio editing and like sound effects in the background. And I was like, oh, I should end this episode by like reaching out to this person, just get a quick like a 5-minute like see how he's doing now. And that turned into an hour-long conversation. And as someone with ADHD who loves being in the moment, I'm like, oh, interviews are way more fun than solo stuff where I'm like all week. What am I going to talk about next week?
Yeah.
Started doing more and more interviews. And what I really love is just talking to everyday people with ADHD. Like I do have a lot of experts on the show, but most of the people I talk to are, people, because I want people to hear themselves in other people's stories, because I think that is so helpful. And so I've been doing these coaching groups. We've had over 1,200 people in our coaching program. We've been recognized as in our Innovative Programs Award at our national conference for 2 different years. I got a co-working thing that I do called Adult Study Hall. It's everything's at ADHDrewired.com.
I found a lot of great things also on YouTube with you. So if anyone is out there needing little snippets or specificities of ADHD and how to apply that in life, I saw a lot of great videos on there for you. So well done. And thank you, because I think I'll be checking that out very soon. Just to kind of get more.
Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. If you're interested in talking about ADHD.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with our healthy takeout. Welcome back to Longevity Junky. It's time for our healthy takeout. Do you feel more clear and more centered and focused?
Well, so obviously I was telling you, like, I have sort of one of these sort of rarer types, which actually for me really has been a superpower. I get it. A lot of the other things that, these diagnoses are challenging, right? Like by nature, you're kind of grouping symptoms together, and then you have like 6 things, and then you check them off. And
there's so many variability.
Right.
Each
So I think
individual is unique.
Yeah, I think people kind of see themselves in these things, and I think in more extreme situations, like I think it's really important to recognize that you do have these issues, because these therapies, coaching, medications can help you be. And if you look at it again as a real disease, I mean, shoot, twice the mortality rate, that's no joke.
I feel like it's the stress, man, on your body.
Well, I think that's it. But there's also like a lot of these thrill-seeking things that they get, like a lot more drug issues, a lot more.
Oh, they have more issues, you're saying?
Oh, yeah. They have bigger issues with drugs, much higher rate of suicide, like dangerous, thrill-seeking kind of activities, that kind of stuff. So that probably has a lot to do with it. But you're right, stress as well, and all those things. So, So I think the important thing from our perspective is if somebody has these symptoms, And maybe it's ADHD, and maybe it's something that you need to try to get some help with.
Yeah. Well, definitely in his the Rewired podcast, and like I said, YouTube, I was looking at him before we hopped on, and they have so many, like, I think maybe the average, was like 10 minutes ish that their little videos are, but it explains things. It's like, okay, how to schedule and things like that. And one of the things he was, he gives you tools basically, and he shows you how to set up those tools, which I really appreciated. And then also even in here, just hearing, like, I think setting alarms is huge for me as well. I also think burnout is a trigger word for a lot of people in the past couple of years, because I really do believe that burnout's super popular. So taking these breaks, again, setting this alarm to take some breaks, like, I think being kinder to yourself as well is a huge thing. But and then last thing I want to say is I'm so in love with how many times all these different experts bring up the sense of community. And so I just am feeling that we're social creatures. So to have accountability bunnies, to have, like, people that you don't feel alone in all of this, that to me also just helps in longevity, as we've seen across so many different episodes, which is, I think, really, really nice and supportive.
Well, useful show. You want to read us out?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Longevity Junky is created by Dr. Buck Joffrey, MD. It's executive produced by myself, Nikki Lee, Dr. Buck Joffrey, and Phil Ferragamo. We're distributed by our friends at ACAST. See you next time.